The skyline of New York City glowed with 1,000 lights, but the streets below were cloaked in shadows that seemed to stretch farther each night. The city was an intricate web of bustling energy and lurking danger, and Matt Murdock navigated this duality with a precision born from his unique blend of sight and blindness. By day, he was a respected lawyer, a defender of justice with a keen mind and a passion for the law. By night, he was Daredevil, a vigilante who prowled the alleys and rooftops, battling the darker forces that sought to undermine the city's fragile peace. Matt Murdock's apartment was a sanctuary amidst the chaos, a place where the strains of his double life momentarily receded. The clutter of legal books and papers was offset by the worn leather of his vigilante gear, hidden away but ever present. The duality of his existence was more than just a shift between day and night. It was a constant internal struggle, a fight for balance between his professional ethics and his personal sense of justice. In the heart of Hell's Kitchen, Matt's law firm, Nelson and Murdock, was a beacon of hope for those who couldn't afford high-priced lawyers. He and his partner, Foggy Nelson, tackled cases that ranged from the mundane to the monumental. Their office, modest but bustling, was a symbol of their commitment to defending the innocent and fighting corruption. Matt's ability to read people, enhanced by his acute senses, made him an extraordinary attorney, often seeing through deceit and manipulation that others might miss. But as Matt walked through the dimly lit streets of his neighborhood, he could feel the city's pulse quicken. Crime was on the rise, an insidious tide that threatened to engulf everything he held dear. Reports of violence, drug trafficking, and organized crime were becoming more frequent. New York was deteriorating into a battleground where the law seemed powerless against the rampant criminal activities. The streets were alive with whispers of a new syndicate, an organized crime network that was weaving itself into the city's very fabric. Matt's struggle to balance his two identities was becoming increasingly challenging. As Daredevil, he was driven by a need for vengeance and justice, a compulsion to right the wrongs that the legal system couldn't reach. Each night, he donned his crimson suit, slipping into the role of the masked vigilante with a sense of purpose that contrasted starkly with his daytime life. Yet, the physical toll and emotional strain of these nocturnal battles were becoming evident. One night, after a particularly grueling encounter with a gang of thugs, Matt returned to his apartment bruised and exhausted. The physical pain was a constant reminder of the price he paid for his double life, but the real burden was the emotional weight of his choices. As he sat in his small kitchen, nursing his wounds, he reflected on the growing divide between his two worlds. The crime syndicate that was emerging as a formidable force was unlike anything Matt had faced before. It was not just the violence and the corruption, it was the sheer scale of their operations, their ability to infiltrate every level of society, and their ruthless efficiency. Matt's attempts to gather information about this new threat were met with roadblocks and dead ends, each failure adding to his frustration. At the same time, his work at the firm was becoming more demanding. High-profile cases were piling up, and the pressure to perform was mounting. Matt's commitment to his clients and his pursuit of justice in the courtroom were often at odds with the time and energy required to be Daredevil. Foggy, ever the loyal partner, noticed Matt's increasing absences and strained demeanor but was too focused on their cases to press for details. The rise of crime in New York was not just a backdrop, it was a living entity that threatened to consume Matt's dual existence. The city's descent into chaos was both a reflection of the challenges he faced and a catalyst for his nightly crusades. Each day brought a new battle, each night a new confrontation, and the delicate balance Matt maintained between his roles was becoming increasingly precarious. As the chapter closes, Matt stands on the rooftop of a building overlooking the city. The skyline, though illuminated, is marred by shadows and darkness. The weight of his dual life bears down on him, a constant reminder of the sacrifices he makes and the battles yet to come. The city's plight echoes in his mind, a stark reminder that his fight against the encroaching darkness is far from over. The early morning sun filtered through the blinds of the Nelson and Murdock office, casting a warm glow on the cluttered desks and stacks of legal briefs. Matt Murdock, blind but with senses finely tuned to the rhythms of the world around him, navigated the space with practiced ease. He moved with the confidence of someone who had long mastered the art of seeing without sight, his footsteps echoing softly against the hardwood floors. Matt's partner, Foggy Nelson, was already at his desk, furiously typing away on his computer. Foggy's easygoing demeanor was a sharp contrast to the intensity Matt brought to their cases. Despite their differing approaches, the two had formed a close bond, their friendship strengthened by years of working side by side. Foggy, with his natural charisma and unwavering loyalty, was the perfect counterbalance to Matt's more reserved and focused nature. "Morning, Matt," Foggy greeted, glancing up from his work with a grin. "I've got a new case that I think you'll want to see." Matt's keen hearing picked up the enthusiasm in Foggy's voice, and he smiled, sensing his partner's excitement. "What's got you so fired up today?" Foggy rolled his chair over to Matt's desk, holding out a file. "We've been asked to represent a whistleblower who's blowing the lid off a major corruption scandal involving some high-profile city officials. It's a huge opportunity for us." Matt took the file from Foggy's hands, his fingers deftly skimming the pages. The details of the case were as troubling as they were significant. The whistleblower, a mid-level city employee, had gathered evidence implicating several influential politicians in a bribery scheme that involved millions of dollars. If the claims were true, it could not only expose widespread corruption but also shake the foundations of the city's political landscape. As Matt reviewed the case materials, his mind began to piece together the puzzle. The evidence was compelling, but the challenge would be proving the allegations in court. Corruption of this scale often came with powerful adversaries who would stop at nothing to protect their interests. "Foggy, this is big," Matt said, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and concern. "We're going to need to be prepared for a fight, not just in the courtroom but outside of it too." Foggy nodded, his expression growing serious. "I know. We'll need to be strategic and careful. The people we're up against aren't going to take this lying down." As the day progressed, Matt and Foggy met with their client, a nervous yet determined woman named Claire Thompson. Claire had come forward after witnessing firsthand the level of corruption within the city's administration. Her testimony could be the key to unraveling the conspiracy, but she was aware of the risks involved. The threat of retaliation was real, and her safety was a primary concern. In their office meeting, Claire's voice trembled as she recounted her experiences. Matt listened intently, his enhanced hearing picking up on the subtle nuances of her words and emotions. Despite her fear, her resolve was clear. She wanted justice, and she was willing to risk everything to see it through. After Claire left, Foggy and Matt huddled over their case files, discussing their strategy. They knew that exposing the corruption would make them powerful enemies, and the safety of their client would be paramount. "We need to build a strong case," Foggy said. "We'll gather more evidence, find corroborating witnesses, and ensure that Claire's testimony holds up under scrutiny." Matt nodded, feeling the weight of their responsibility. "And we need to be prepared for any backlash. If they're as powerful as we think they are, they won't hesitate to try and silence us." As evening approached, Matt prepared to leave the office, his thoughts already shifting to his nocturnal activities. The balance between his life as a lawyer and his role as Daredevil was a tightrope he walked daily. Each role demanded his full attention, and often the two worlds collided in unexpected ways. Foggy caught up with Matt as he was heading out. "You're not going to leave me hanging, are you? We've got a lot of work ahead of us." Matt chuckled softly. "I wouldn't dream of it. I'll see you in the morning. In the meantime, I've got some other business to attend to." As Matt made his way through the city's bustling streets, he felt the familiar pull of his dual life. The lawyer's suit was swapped for the Daredevil's costume, and the city's shadows called to him. The fight against corruption was just beginning, and while his daytime persona was focused on legal battles, his nighttime role was ready to confront the darker side of the city. In the depths of the night, Daredevil would patrol the streets, seeking justice for those who couldn't be helped by the legal system alone. The corruption Matt sought to expose was a formidable adversary, but he was determined to see it through, no matter the personal cost. As he swung across the city's skyline, Matt's thoughts were a mix of anticipation and resolve. The challenges ahead were daunting, but he was ready to face them head-on, whether in the courtroom or the shadows of the night. The moon cast a silvery light over the streets of Hell's Kitchen, and the city hummed with the sounds of late-night revelers and distant sirens. For Matt Murdock, this was a time to embrace his other self, a vigilante born out of necessity and a deep-seated need for justice. Tonight, he would take his first steps into a world where the law's reach faltered, and his unique abilities became his greatest asset. Matt stood on the rooftop of an old warehouse, the fabric of his Daredevil suit clinging to him. The suit was a makeshift armor, designed more for intimidation and protection than for comfort. His heightened senses, the result of an accident that left him blind but endowed him with extraordinary abilities, guided him. The sounds of the city, the rustling of the wind, and the subtle vibrations through the building all formed a complex tapestry that Matt navigated with precision. His first foray into vigilante justice was a simple one. A local gang was known for its illegal activities, including drug trafficking and extortion. Matt had gathered enough intel to believe that tonight could be the night to make a dent in their operations. The gang's hideout was rumored to be in the warehouse below, a place where illicit transactions and secret meetings took place away from prying eyes. Matt descended the fire escape with practiced ease, landing silently on the ground. His sense of hearing picked up the low murmur of voices and the occasional clinking of metal, sounds that led him toward the entrance of the warehouse. As he approached, he noted the subtle shifts in the soundscape, the indication of movement within. The interior of the warehouse was dimly lit, illuminated by flickering bulbs and shafts of moonlight filtering through broken windows. The air was thick with the smell of old machinery and stale smoke. Matt's enhanced senses painted a vivid picture of the scene: a group of men, rough and hardened, gathered around crates of contraband. Matt took a deep breath, his heart pounding with adrenaline. He knew that fighting crime blind came with its own set of challenges. While his other senses compensated for his lack of sight, the physical demands of combat required a different kind of precision. Each move, each strike, had to be calculated, and every sound and vibration had to be interpreted with accuracy. He moved swiftly, his body a blur of motion. The first thug fell before he even had a chance to react, Matt's fist connecting with a precise force. The other men scrambled, their shouts of alarm and confusion blending into a cacophony that Matt used to his advantage. He ducked and dodged, relying on the echoes and vibrations to anticipate their movements. Despite his training, the challenges were evident. He could feel the strain in his muscles, the effort required to stay one step ahead of his opponents. Each swing and kick was a testament to his resilience, but the unpredictability of hand-to-hand combat made it clear that he needed to refine his skills. As the fight raged on, Matt's mind was focused on the real threat looming over the city. Rumors of a powerful crime syndicate began to surface, a shadowy organization that operated with a level of sophistication and secrecy that surpassed anything he had encountered before. The syndicate's reach was extensive, and its influence extended into the very fabric of New York's criminal underworld. Matt's encounter with the local gang yielded valuable information, a connection to the syndicate and a lead on its operations. The gang members spoke in hushed tones about a big player who had been calling the shots, a figure whose name was whispered with both fear and respect. This was the beginning of a larger, more dangerous game, and Matt knew that exposing the syndicate's machinations would be a monumental task. The fight concluded with the warehouse in disarray, the gang members subdued and tied up for the authorities to handle. Matt, battered but not broken, took a moment to catch his breath. The night had been a success in terms of disrupting the local gang's operations, but it was clear that this was only a small piece of the puzzle. As he made his way back to his apartment, Matt's thoughts were consumed by the emerging threat of the crime syndicate. The city was becoming more dangerous by the day, and the syndicate's presence was a dark cloud that loomed over every corner of New York. The challenge ahead was not just about physical confrontations but also about uncovering the layers of corruption and power that shielded the syndicate from justice. In the solitude of his apartment, Matt removed his Daredevil mask and let out a long sigh. The dual life he led was taking its toll, and the stakes were higher than ever. Yet, there was a fire within him, a determination to fight against the darkness that threatened to engulf the city. The Daredevil had emerged, and with him came a promise to confront the growing menace and seek justice where the law alone could not reach. As dawn began to break, casting a pale light over the city, Murdock prepared himself for the days ahead. The fight against crime and corruption was far from over, and the road to uncovering the truth about the syndicate would be fraught with danger and challenges. But he was ready to face whatever lay ahead, armed with his unyielding sense of justice and the determination to protect his city. The underbelly of New York City was a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, a world where the crime syndicate operated with a chilling efficiency. The syndicate's influence was pervasive, seeping into every corner of the city and manipulating events from behind a veil of secrecy. For Murdock, the task of unraveling this dark network was proving to be a monumental challenge. It was early evening when Matt, in his Daredevil guise, received a tip from an informant. The informant, a small-time hustler with a fear of the syndicate's retribution, had provided a crucial lead. A secret meeting was taking place at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The meeting was rumored to involve some of the syndicate's key figures, a chance for Matt to gain insight into the organization's structure and objectives. Matt approached the warehouse with caution. His senses were on high alert as he surveyed the area. The warehouse was a decrepit building, its exterior covered in grime and graffiti. Inside, the sounds of murmured conversations and the clinking of glasses filtered through the walls, indicating a gathering of importance. As Matt slipped inside, he was met with a scene that confirmed the gravity of the syndicate's influence. The room was filled with high-ranking members of various criminal enterprises, all gathered under one roof. The syndicate's grip on the city was evident in the diverse array of attendees: drug dealers, corrupt politicians, and business magnates with dubious connections. Their interactions revealed the intricate web of alliances and betrayals that sustained the syndicate's power. The center of the meeting was a figure of considerable authority, a man known only as the Kingpin. The Kingpin's reputation preceded him, a ruthless and calculating mastermind who controlled the syndicate's operations with an iron fist. His presence commanded attention, and his aura of menace was palpable even from Matt's position in the shadows. The Kingpin's right hand, a formidable enforcer known as Bullseye, stood close by. Bullseye was infamous for his deadly accuracy and unerring skill with any weapon he chose. His cold demeanor and lethal efficiency made him a feared enforcer, and his involvement signaled the seriousness of the threat Daredevil was up against. As Matt listened, snippets of conversation painted a grim picture. The syndicate was not only involved in traditional crime but was also expanding its reach into legitimate businesses, using them as fronts for money laundering and illegal activities. The Kingpin's plan to consolidate power was coming to fruition, and his influence was growing stronger by the day. Matt's presence in the warehouse did not go unnoticed for long. Bullseye, with his sharp senses and uncanny ability to detect hidden threats, picked up on the slightest disturbance. The air grew tense as Bullseye's gaze swept across the room, his eyes narrowing as if searching for something out of place. In a flash, Matt was forced to act. He moved swiftly, using his acrobatic skills to navigate the maze of crates and machinery. His senses guided him as he evaded Bullseye's attacks, the enforcer's deadly precision narrowly missing him. The warehouse erupted into chaos as Bullseye began targeting Matt with a variety of projectiles, from throwing knives to metal shards. Despite the danger, Matt managed to gather crucial information. He overheard plans for a major operation that would solidify the syndicate's control over the city, involving a shipment of illegal goods set to be distributed across multiple territories. The operation was scheduled to take place within the next few days, and it was clear that this was a pivotal moment for the syndicate's expansion. Matt's encounter with Bullseye was intense and grueling. The enforcer's relentless pursuit tested Matt's abilities and endurance. The two engaged in a fierce battle, with Matt's agility and heightened senses pitted against Bullseye's deadly accuracy and combat prowess. In the end, Matt managed to escape, but not without sustaining injuries. The fight left him battered and exhausted, a stark reminder of the dangers that lay ahead. As Matt limped away from the warehouse, he realized the magnitude of the task before him. The syndicate was not just a collection of criminals, it was a sophisticated and highly organized network with far-reaching influence. The kingpin and bullseye were only the tip of the iceberg, and the full extent of the syndicate's power was still unknown. Back at his apartment, Matt tended to his wounds and reflected on the night's events. The information he had gathered was invaluable, but the path forward was fraught with peril. The syndicate's operation was a critical point of leverage, and disrupting it could be the key to unraveling the organization's grip on the city. Matt knew that the coming days would be pivotal. The fight against the syndicate would require more than just physical strength, it would demand strategy, cunning, and unwavering resolve. As Daredevil, he was prepared to confront the darkness head-on, but the challenge was greater than he had ever faced before. The shadows of the underworld were closing in, and the battle for New York's soul was only beginning. Matt Murdock, as both lawyer and vigilante, was ready to face the storm and fight for justice in a city teetering on the edge of chaos. As the battle against the crime syndicate intensified, Matt Murdock knew he couldn't confront the growing threat alone. The scope of the syndicate's operations demanded a network of allies, each bringing their own strengths to the fight. One such ally was Elektra Natchios, a skilled fighter with a history that intertwined with Matt's own. Her arrival marked both a boon and a complication in Matt's already complex life. Elektra's introduction came during a late-night visit to an abandoned warehouse where Matt was investigating a lead. As he meticulously searched through the cluttered space, a sudden noise made him spin around. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, moving with a grace and precision that spoke of formidable combat skills. The figure revealed herself as Elektra, her presence both commanding and enigmatic. Her striking appearance, an elegant but functional outfit adorned with weapons, immediately set her apart. Despite their shared goal, Matt couldn't ignore the tension that crackled between them. Matt Murdock, Elektra greeted with a hint of a smile, her voice smooth yet laced with an edge. "I've heard about your exploits. Seems you're making quite an impression." Matt's stance was guarded. "Elektra, I didn't expect to see you here. What are you doing in New York?" Elektra's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained sharp. "I came to offer my assistance. I have my reasons for wanting to take down the syndicate, and it seems our goals align. But don't mistake my presence as an easy alliance. I don't play by anyone's rules but my own." The tension between Matt and Elektra was palpable. Their past relationship was fraught with unresolved emotions and conflicting ideologies. While they had fought side by side before, their differing approaches to justice and personal vendettas had often led to friction. Despite the tension, Matt acknowledged the value of Elektra's skills. Her experience and combat prowess could be instrumental in taking down the syndicate. They decided to work together, though the uneasy truce between them was evident. The collaboration was put to the test in the following days as Matt and Elektra began coordinating their efforts. Their interactions were a blend of mutual respect and unspoken conflict. Matt's disciplined approach clashed with Elektra's more unpredictable and ruthless tactics. Their arguments were frequent, but they also pushed each other to become better fighters. The introduction of Elektra wasn't the only change in Matt's world. A mysterious figure began to make their presence known, moving through the city's shadows with an almost supernatural skill. This figure, cloaked in anonymity, had been leaving subtle but impactful marks on the criminal underworld. Matt first encountered this mysterious figure during a confrontation with a group of syndicate enforcers. As he battled through the thugs, he noticed a silhouette moving with uncanny speed and precision. The figure intervened at critical moments, disrupting the syndicate's plans and leaving behind cryptic messages. The figure's motives were unclear, and their true identity remained hidden behind a mask. Each encounter was marked by a sense of foreboding and intrigue. The mysterious figure seemed to be one step ahead, outmaneuvering both Matt and the syndicate. The cryptic messages left by the figure added to the complexity of the situation. They were often taunting, hinting at deeper knowledge of Matt's personal life and the ongoing battle against the syndicate. The messages suggested that the figure had a vested interest in the outcome of the conflict, but their true intentions were shrouded in mystery. Matt's encounters with the mysterious figure led to a growing sense of unease. The figure's interventions were both helpful and disruptive, challenging Matt's perceptions of allies and enemies. The constant presence of the unknown figure added a layer of psychological tension to the physical battles he faced. As the chapter progressed, the strained alliances and emerging threats created a volatile environment. Matt and Elektra's uneasy partnership was tested as they navigated the shifting dynamics of their fight against the syndicate. The mysterious figure's presence loomed over their efforts, adding an element of unpredictability to their mission. Matt knew that understanding the enigmatic figure's role in the conflict was crucial. The figure's actions hinted at a deeper connection to the syndicate and the broader struggle for control of the city. As Matt and Elektra continued their battle against the crime syndicate, the shadows of their past and the uncertainty of the future intertwined, creating a dramatic and high-stakes confrontation. The chapter closed with Matt, Elektra, and the mysterious figure caught in a web of alliances and enmities. The fight for justice was becoming increasingly complicated, and the path to victory was fraught with challenges and unknowns. The journey ahead would test the limits of their resolve and reveal the true nature of their adversaries. New York City thrummed with relentless energy, but for Matt Murdock, the city's pulse was a constant reminder of the delicate balance he was struggling to maintain. By day, he was a respected lawyer, fighting for justice within the confines of the legal system. By night, he became Daredevil, confronting the city's darker elements with his own brand of justice. The duality of his existence was taking a profound toll on him, affecting every aspect of his life. The office of Nelson and Murdock was a haven of order amidst the chaos. Matt's office was meticulously organized, a stark contrast to the disorder that marked his nights as Daredevil. His law partner, Foggy Nelson, was a reliable anchor in this world of law and order. However, the strain of Matt's double life was beginning to show, both in his work and in his personal relationships. One particularly grueling day, Matt found himself in the middle of a heated trial. The case was high-profile, involving a major corporation accused of environmental violations. It was a case Matt felt deeply about, both professionally and personally. The pressure was immense, and he could not afford to let his focus slip. Yet, the toll of his nightly escapades as Daredevil was beginning to manifest in subtle ways. His exhaustion was evident, and his temper was fraying. As the trial proceeded, Matt struggled to keep his dual identities from clashing. He was forced to make difficult decisions, juggling late-night patrols with early-morning court appearances. The physical and emotional exhaustion was beginning to catch up with him, and the facade he maintained was showing signs of cracking. Foggy noticed the change in Matt's demeanor, his concern growing with each passing day. "Matt, you're pushing yourself too hard," Foggy said one afternoon, his voice laced with worry. "You've been running on empty for weeks. You need to take a break." Matt forced a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm fine, Foggy. Just a lot on my plate." But Foggy's concern was justified. Matt's personal life was suffering, strained relationships and missed social events piling up as he tried to juggle his responsibilities. His longtime friend Karen Page noticed the changes as well, her worry about Matt's well-being growing with each encounter. Their conversations were becoming increasingly strained, as Matt struggled to balance his personal connections with his relentless quest for justice. The impact of Matt's actions as Daredevil was also becoming evident in his law practice. The case against the corporation was heating up, and the opposing counsel was relentless. Matt's late nights and injuries were beginning to undermine his effectiveness in court. The once confident and capable lawyer was now battling not just the case, but also the physical and mental fatigue that came with his dual life. During one pivotal court session, Matt's exhaustion became evident. His arguments lacked their usual sharpness, and he struggled to keep his focus. The opposing lawyer seized on Matt's vulnerabilities, exploiting his fatigue to gain an advantage. The courtroom was abuzz with tension as Matt stumbled through his presentation, the case hanging in the balance. Foggy, ever the supportive partner, stepped in to cover for Matt as best as he could. But the damage was done. The strain of Matt's double life was taking a toll on their practice, and the firm's reputation was at risk. The internal conflict between Matt's roles was creating a rift in his professional and personal relationships. In the quiet of his apartment that evening, Matt reflected on the cost of his choices. The weight of maintaining two identities was heavier than he had anticipated. His injuries, his strained relationships, and the faltering state of his law practice were all reminders of the sacrifices he was making. The cost of his double life was becoming painfully clear. The emotional and physical toll of his vigilante duties was beginning to affect his sense of purpose. The struggle to maintain the balance between Matt Murdock and Daredevil was leading him to question his limits and his priorities. He found himself at a crossroads, torn between his desire to protect the city and the need to preserve his own well-being and personal relationships. As the chapter drew to a close, Matt stood on the rooftop of his apartment building, overlooking the city that was both his battleground and his sanctuary. The skyline was a reminder of the duality of his existence, a city that demanded both his presence and his sacrifice. The path forward was uncertain, and the future held both promise and peril. Matt knew that he needed to reassess his approach. The double life he led was exacting a heavy toll, and finding a way to reconcile his two identities was imperative. The fight for justice was far from over, but Matt had to confront the reality of his situation and make choices that would determine the course of his life and his mission. Matt Murdock's relentless pursuit of justice had led him into the heart of New York's criminal underworld. With the syndicate's influence growing stronger, he knew he needed to dig deeper to uncover the full extent of their operations. As Daredevil, Matt's investigation took him through the city's darkest corners, where he began to unravel a conspiracy that reached far beyond what he had initially anticipated. The investigation started with seemingly isolated leads, drug shipments, money laundering operations, and corrupt officials. But as Matt delved deeper, he began to see a more insidious pattern emerge. The crime syndicate wasn't just a collection of criminals, it was a meticulously orchestrated network with deep ties to legitimate businesses, law enforcement, and even some political figures. Matt's journey into the heart of this conspiracy led him to a clandestine meeting with an informant known only as the Ghost. The informant had been providing cryptic but valuable information about the syndicate's activities. The meeting took place in a rundown safe house, a location chosen for its secrecy and isolation. The Ghost, shrouded in anonymity and darkness, revealed shocking information. The syndicate's reach extends beyond simple crime. They've been manipulating key players in the city's infrastructure, police, politicians, and business leaders. They're planning something big, something that will consolidate their power in ways we can't even imagine. Matt's heart raced as he absorbed the implications of the Ghost's words. The syndicate's plans were more ambitious than he had thought. They were not just seeking control over illegal operations but were poised to embed themselves in the very fabric of the city's governance and economy. The ramifications of such a conspiracy were staggering, threatening to reshape the city into a playground for the syndicate's ruthless ambitions. The Ghost handed Matt a dossier containing details about key figures involved in the conspiracy, names, connections, and incriminating evidence. Among the names was one that stood out: a high-profile politician with ambitions that extended beyond mere governance. The politician, identified as Senator Daniel Cross, was rumored to be a key player in the syndicate's plans, using his influence to further their agenda. With this new information, Matt's investigation took on a new urgency. He knew he needed to act quickly to expose the conspiracy and prevent the syndicate from achieving their goals. However, as he moved forward, he began to sense that he was not the only one pursuing the truth. An unexpected betrayal shattered Matt's world. During a crucial meeting with a trusted ally, a longtime friend who had been working undercover to gather information on the syndicate, Matt was ambushed. The ally, once a close confidant, revealed their true allegiance as a double agent working for the syndicate. The betrayal was swift and brutal, leading to a dramatic confrontation that left Matt reeling. The double agent's motivations were revealed in a chilling confession. "I did it for the money, Matt. The syndicate offered me everything I needed: wealth, power, security. You were a means to an end. I'm sorry it had to end this way." The betrayal was a heavy blow to Matt, both personally and professionally. The loss of a trusted ally and the realization that the syndicate had infiltrated even his inner circle shook his confidence. The double agent had managed to sabotage some of Matt's leads and put his life in immediate danger. Despite the setback, Matt's resolve remained unshaken. He knew that the conspiracy's complexity required him to be more vigilant and resourceful than ever. The sense of betrayal only fueled his determination to see justice served. As Matt regrouped and reassessed his strategy, he began to piece together the fragments of the conspiracy. The evidence pointed towards a final, devastating plan orchestrated by the syndicate. Their ultimate objective was to stage a massive public scandal involving Senator Cross, designed to discredit key figures and create a power vacuum that the syndicate could exploit. The stakes had never been higher. Matt's fight against the syndicate had evolved from a battle against crime to a struggle for the city's very future. He needed to expose the conspiracy and thwart the syndicate's plans before it was too late. With renewed focus and a sense of urgency, Matt prepared for the final phase of his investigation. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but he was determined to see it through. The unraveling conspiracy had shown him the depths of corruption and deceit, and he was ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The chapter closed with Matt standing on the rooftop of his apartment building, staring out at the city. The lights of New York twinkled below, a reminder of what was at stake. The battle was far from over, and the path to justice was strewn with obstacles and betrayals. But Matt was resolved to fight on, driven by the knowledge that the future of his city depended on his ability to uncover the truth and bring the conspirators to justice. The city was on edge. News reports and rumors of the crime syndicate's increased activity spread like wildfire, casting a dark shadow over New York. The syndicate's retaliation against Daredevil had begun, and the consequences of their actions were devastating. Matt Murdock's double life was about to face its most severe test yet. The first sign of the syndicate's retaliation came in the form of a coordinated attack on Matt's world. His apartment was ransacked, his office at Nelson and Murdock was destroyed, and even Foggy's home was targeted. The syndicate's reach was extensive, and their message was clear: Daredevil was no longer just a nuisance, he was an enemy to be eradicated. Matt returned to his devastated apartment late one night, surveying the damage with a sinking feeling. His personal sanctuary, once a place of respite, was now a grim reminder of the war he was waging. The realization that the syndicate had targeted his personal life with such precision struck him hard. They were not just attacking him physically, they were aiming to break his spirit. The personal toll became even clearer when Matt received a phone call from Karen Page. Her voice trembled with fear and anger. "Matt, they've attacked the office, and Foggy, he's been hurt. It's bad." Matt's heart sank. The attack on Foggy was the worst blow he could imagine. Foggy had always been more than just a partner. He was a friend, a confidant, and a source of unwavering support. The thought of him being hurt, or worse, ignited a fury within Matt. With the full weight of the situation pressing down on him, Matt prepared for a final confrontation with the syndicate's leader. He had been tracking the elusive figure behind the conspiracy, whose identity remained shrouded in secrecy. The leader was rumored to be a mastermind of unparalleled cunning and ruthlessness, and Matt knew that a direct confrontation was inevitable. The showdown took place in an abandoned industrial complex, a fitting battleground for the climactic confrontation. The location was isolated and imposing, with the remnants of old machinery and darkened corridors providing a dramatic backdrop. Daredevil's senses were on high alert as he navigated the labyrinthine layout, every sound and shadow magnified by his heightened perception. Finally, Matt confronted the syndicate's leader, a figure known only as the Shadow. The leader was a tall, enigmatic individual whose presence exuded both authority and menace. The confrontation was intense, with both combatants engaging in a brutal exchange of blows. The Shadow's fighting style was as sophisticated as it was vicious, and the battle pushed Matt to his limits. Amidst the chaos, the Shadow taunted Matt, revealing more about the depth of the syndicate's plans. "You think you can stop us, Daredevil? We control the city's very foundation. Your efforts are futile." Matt, battered and exhausted, pressed on, driven by the pain of personal losses and the desire to protect his city. The confrontation was not just a physical battle but a clash of wills, as Matt fought to dismantle the conspiracy and bring justice to those who had been harmed. As the fight reached its climax, the Shadow managed to deliver a devastating blow, leaving Matt wounded and vulnerable. The leader's escape left Matt on the ground, struggling to regain his footing. The victory was bittersweet, as the damage done by the syndicate's retaliation had taken its toll on Matt's life. Returning to his damaged apartment, Matt faced the harsh reality of his personal losses. The emotional and physical scars were evident, and the sacrifices he had made for his crusade against the syndicate were becoming increasingly apparent. Foggy's condition was critical, and the sense of guilt over not being able to protect his friend weighed heavily on Matt. Karen, by Matt's side, was a source of comfort but also a reminder of the cost of his choices. "You've done everything you could," she said softly, her eyes filled with concern. "But you can't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders alone." Matt's sense of responsibility was unshaken, but the realization that his actions had led to personal losses and sacrifices was profound. The city he fought to protect had been profoundly affected by the syndicate's machinations, and the impact on his life was undeniable. The chapter closed with Matt standing amidst the ruins of his apartment, the weight of the siege and the confrontation with the Shadow settling heavily on his shoulders. The battle was far from over, and the path ahead was fraught with challenges. The sacrifices he had made and the personal losses he had endured were a stark reminder of the cost of his double life. As Matt prepared for the next phase of his fight, he knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. The struggle to protect New York and bring down the crime syndicate was far from over, and Matt Murdock's resolve would be tested like never before. The aftermath of the siege left Matt Murdock in a state of deep introspection. The weight of his losses, both personal and professional, had caused him to question not only his methods but also his very purpose. The battle with the crime syndicate had taken a toll on his spirit, and Matt found himself grappling with a crisis of faith and morality. Matt sat alone in his damaged apartment, the once familiar surroundings now a stark reminder of the consequences of his dual life. The physical and emotional scars were evident, and the realization of the personal cost weighed heavily on him. The attack on Foggy and the collateral damage inflicted on those he cared about had forced Matt to confront the stark reality of his crusade. In a moment of profound vulnerability, Matt questioned whether his efforts were worth the sacrifices. "Have I lost sight of what I'm fighting for?" he wondered aloud. The city he sought to protect seemed to be slipping through his fingers, and the personal toll was becoming increasingly unbearable. Matt's sense of guilt was compounded by the fear that his actions were causing more harm than good. Seeking solace and clarity, Matt turned to his faith. He visited a local church, a place where he could reflect in solitude. The quiet and the sanctuary offered a temporary respite from the chaos, allowing him to ponder his choices and their implications. The priest's words resonated with him, providing a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. Sometimes, redemption comes not from the battles we win but from the courage to face our own shortcomings. With renewed resolve, Matt understood that his fight was far from over. He needed to adapt his strategies to outwit the crime syndicate and prevent their plans from coming to fruition. The time for introspection was over. It was time to act. Matt began to formulate a new approach to confronting the syndicate. He knew he needed to be more strategic and resourceful than ever before. His first step was to gather intelligence on the syndicate's remaining operations and figure out their next move. Using the information he had collected, he pieced together the fragments of their plans and identified potential weaknesses. Realizing that he could not face the syndicate alone, Matt reached out to his allies. The first to answer the call was Elektra, the formidable warrior with a complex history and an unwavering commitment to justice. Their reunion was tense but marked by a shared understanding of the stakes. Elektra's expertise and resources were crucial to taking down the syndicate. Next, Matt approached his longtime friend and ally, Foggy Nelson. Despite his injuries and the toll the recent events had taken on him, Foggy was resolute in his support. "We're in this together, Matt," he said firmly. "We'll fight for what's right, no matter the cost." Karen Page also stood by Matt's side, her unwavering support a source of strength. The emotional and personal sacrifices she had made were not forgotten, and her involvement in the final stand was a testament to her commitment to the cause. Together, they formed a united front, determined to bring down the crime syndicate and restore justice to the city. With his allies assembled, Matt devised a plan to expose the syndicate's operations and dismantle their network. The strategy involved a multi-pronged approach: gathering evidence to bring the syndicate's leaders to justice, launching coordinated attacks on their key operations, and creating a public outcry to pressure authorities into action. The final stand against the crime syndicate was a high-stakes operation that required precision and coordination. Matt, Elektra, Foggy, and Karen worked together to execute their plan. The operation involved infiltrating the syndicate's strongholds, securing crucial evidence, and confronting key figures within the organization. The tension was palpable as the team moved forward with their plan. Each member of the team played a critical role. Elektra provided combat expertise, Foggy offered legal insight and support, Karen used her connections to rally public support, and Matt coordinated the overall strategy. As the operation reached its climax, the team faced intense resistance from the syndicate's forces. The confrontation was fierce, with high-stakes battles and close calls testing the limits of their resolve. Despite the challenges, the team's determination and unity were unwavering. In the final moments of the confrontation, Matt faced off against the Shadow once more. The battle was brutal, but Matt's renewed sense of purpose and the support of his allies gave him the edge. With a decisive blow, Matt and his team managed to bring the Shadow and the syndicate's operations to their knees. The victory was hard-won, and the cost of the fight was evident. The city began to recover from the syndicate's grip, and Matt's actions were celebrated as a triumph of justice. However, the personal sacrifices and losses remained a poignant reminder of the toll of his double life. As Matt stood amidst the aftermath of the battle, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The crisis of faith and morality had been a pivotal moment in his life, leading him to a deeper understanding of his purpose and his place in the world. The fight for justice was far from over, but Matt Murdock's resolve had been strengthened, and his commitment to protecting New York remained unshaken. The city was on edge as the culmination of Matt Murdock's fight against the crime syndicate approached. The stakes had never been higher, and the final showdown between Daredevil and the syndicate was imminent. New York City held its breath as the confrontation loomed, aware that its very future depended on the outcome. The syndicate's operations had been disrupted, their network compromised, but their leader, the Shadow, remained at large. With the Syndicate's influence still threatening to destabilize the city, Matt Murdock knew that this final battle would determine the fate of both his crusade and the city he fought to protect. The location of the final showdown was a striking choice, an abandoned skyscraper overlooking the city. The tall, imposing structure was both a symbol of power and a fitting battleground for the epic confrontation. The building's skeletal frame and desolate interior provided an eerie backdrop for the climactic battle. As Daredevil prepared for the showdown, the tension was palpable. The team, Elektra, Foggy, and Karen, was ready to support him, each playing a critical role in the operation. The plan was to corner the Shadow and dismantle the Syndicate's final stronghold in a coordinated strike. Matt's senses were on high alert as he navigated the darkened corridors of the skyscraper, every sound and movement heightened by his heightened perception. The climactic battle unfolded with intense drama. The Shadow, a figure shrouded in menace and power, awaited Daredevil in the building's upper levels. The final confrontation was a brutal, high-stakes fight, with both combatants giving their all. The Shadow's fighting style was as sophisticated and ruthless as ever, and the battle pushed Matt to his limits. As the fight raged on, Matt's focus was razor-sharp. His resolve was fueled by the desire to end the Syndicate's reign of terror and to bring justice to those who had been harmed. Each strike and maneuver was driven by the weight of his mission and the need to protect the city he loved. The battle reached its climax as Daredevil and the Shadow faced off in a dramatic showdown atop the building's roof. The wind howled around them, adding to the intensity of the confrontation. Matt's determination and skill were evident as he fought with everything he had, his senses and instincts guiding him through the fierce combat. In a decisive moment, Daredevil managed to outmaneuver the Shadow, delivering a powerful blow that incapacitated the leader. The Syndicate's operations were finally brought to a halt, and the threat to the city was neutralized. The victory was hard-won, and the cost of the battle was evident, but the sense of relief and accomplishment was profound. As the dust settled, Matt turned his attention to the resolution of the corrupt politician's case. Senator Daniel Cross, the politician who had been deeply involved in the Syndicate's plans, was exposed and arrested. The evidence gathered during the investigation was crucial in bringing him to justice. The case was a significant victory, demonstrating that the fight against corruption and crime had tangible results. Matt's role in the case was a testament to his dual identity as both a lawyer and a vigilante. The resolution of the case marked a significant step in his quest for justice, but it also prompted deep reflection on his dual life. In the quiet moments after the battle, Matt stood on the rooftop of the skyscraper, overlooking the city he had fought so hard to protect. The skyline was a mix of hope and despair, a reminder of the city's resilience and the challenges that lay ahead. Matt's reflection on justice and his dual life was marked by a sense of both accomplishment and contemplation. The fight against the Syndicate had tested Matt in ways he had never imagined. The personal sacrifices, the battles fought, and the moral dilemmas had shaped his understanding of justice and his role in the world. The duality of his life as Daredevil and Matt Murdock had been a source of constant struggle, but it was also a reflection of his commitment to making a difference. As Matt looked out over the city, he understood that his journey was far from over. The fight for justice was an ongoing battle, and his dual identity was both a burden and a blessing. The final showdown had brought closure to a significant chapter, but the challenges ahead would continue to test his resolve. With a renewed sense of purpose, Matt Murdock was ready to face the future, knowing that his commitment to justice and his dedication to protecting New York would guide him through whatever lay ahead. The city's fight for a better tomorrow was a cause worth pursuing, and Daredevil's legacy was one of courage, resilience, and unwavering resolve. The final showdown had left New York City in a state of cautious optimism. The crime syndicate's reign of terror had ended, and the city was beginning to recover from the upheaval. However, the aftermath of the battle brought with it a series of complex challenges and reflections for Matt Murdock. The immediate fallout from the confrontation was felt throughout the city. The arrest of Senator Daniel Cross and the dismantling of the syndicate's operations were major news stories. The city's residents, once fearful and oppressed, began to experience a renewed sense of hope. The victory was celebrated, but the scars of the battle remained visible, both on the city and on those who fought to protect it. For Matt Murdock, the aftermath was a period of profound reflection and difficult decisions. The physical and emotional toll of his dual life had left him exhausted. The battles fought, the sacrifices made, and the personal losses endured weighed heavily on him. As he navigated the complexities of his dual existence, Matt faced the challenge of determining his future as Daredevil. Matt's time was divided between tending to his injuries and spending time with his allies. The support of Elektra, Foggy, and Karen was invaluable during this period of recovery. Their presence was a reminder of the strength of their bond and the importance of their shared mission. In conversations with his allies, Matt contemplated the direction of his life moving forward. Foggy, recovering from his injuries, offered a pragmatic perspective. "You've done more than anyone could ask for," he said. "But you need to think about your future. What's next for you, Matt?" Karen, ever supportive, encouraged Matt to consider a path that balanced his sense of justice with his need for personal fulfillment. "You've made such a difference," she said gently. "But you deserve to find a way to live your life beyond the mask." Elektra, whose own journey had been marked by struggles and sacrifices, understood the complexities of Matt's situation. "Sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones within," she remarked. "Finding peace with yourself is as important as fighting for others." Matt's decisions regarding his future as Daredevil were not made lightly. He understood the responsibility that came with his role and the impact of his actions on those around him. After much contemplation, Matt decided to step back from his role as Daredevil, at least for a time. The decision was driven by a need to focus on healing and to reassess his approach to justice. As Matt began to distance himself from his vigilante persona, he sought to re-engage with his life as a lawyer. His work at Nelson and Murdock became a central focus, and he dedicated himself to fighting for justice within the legal system. The transition was challenging, but Matt's commitment to his clients and his dedication to the practice of law provided a renewed sense of purpose. The final chapter of Matt's journey offered a glimpse into his life moving forward. While the city had begun to heal from the wounds inflicted by the syndicate, Matt's own healing process was ongoing. He spent time reflecting on his experiences, finding solace in moments of quiet and in the company of those who mattered most. The chapter closed with Matt walking through the streets of New York, no longer as Daredevil but as Matt Murdock. The city's skyline was a symbol of both the challenges and the hope that lay ahead. As he navigated the familiar streets, Matt was reminded of the delicate balance between his responsibilities and his personal desires. Matt's future was uncertain, but his commitment to justice and his dedication to making a difference remained unwavering. The journey ahead was one of self-discovery and healing, and Matt was ready to face it with a renewed sense of purpose and resolve. The aftermath of the final confrontation had changed Matt's life in profound ways. The battle against the crime syndicate had been a defining moment, shaping his understanding of justice, sacrifice, and personal fulfillment. As Matt Murdock embraced his future, he did so with the knowledge that the fight for a better world was ongoing and that his journey was far from over. New York City, resilient and ever-changing, continued its relentless pulse of life as the echoes of the recent battles began to fade into history. The skyline, a silhouette against the setting sun, stood as a testament to the city's endurance and the new chapter that awaited its inhabitants. For Matt Murdock, the resolution of his epic struggle marked the beginning of a new phase in his life. The transition from Daredevil to Matt Murdock was more than a change in costume, it was an evolution of his identity. The city's recovery provided new challenges and opportunities for Matt to explore. His commitment to justice remained steadfast, but his focus shifted to finding balance and redefining his purpose. As a lawyer, Matt immersed himself in the intricacies of his cases with renewed vigor. His work at Nelson and Murdock was marked by a dedication to those who sought justice and support. The firm had become a beacon of hope for many, and Matt's approach to the law was driven by the lessons learned from his time as Daredevil. His ability to see the world through a different lens allowed him to advocate for his clients with empathy and insight. The challenges of the legal world were demanding, but Matt found a new sense of fulfillment in his work. Each case was an opportunity to make a difference, to seek justice within the boundaries of the law. His role as a lawyer provided a platform for him to continue fighting for the principles he believed in, albeit through different means. Simultaneously, Matt's dual identities evolved. The decision to step back from the role of Daredevil was not a retreat but a strategic adjustment. Matt continued to train and hone his skills, knowing that the need for vigilance in the city would never fully disappear. He maintained a low profile, using his abilities to support those in need while keeping his identity concealed. Matt's relationship with his allies remained strong. Foggy Nelson, Karen Page, and Elektra were integral parts of his life, each contributing to his journey in their unique ways. Foggy's support in the legal realm and Karen's dedication to advocacy reinforced Matt's commitment to making a positive impact. Elektra, with her own path of redemption, continued to be a source of inspiration and strength. The enduring legacy of Daredevil was reflected in the city's streets and its people. The symbol of Daredevil had become synonymous with courage and resilience, a reminder of the struggle for justice and the power of hope. While Matt Murdock may have stepped away from the mask, the impact of Daredevil's actions continued to resonate throughout New York. The epilogue closed with Matt Murdock standing atop a familiar rooftop, looking out over the city. The view was a blend of memories and possibilities, a reminder of the journey he had undertaken and the future that lay ahead. The city, with its challenges and opportunities, was both a canvas and a battleground, a place where Matt's commitment to justice would continue to evolve. As the night fell over New York, Matt reflected on the path he had traveled and the road that lay before him. The legacy of Daredevil was a testament to the enduring spirit of those who fight for what is right, and Matt's journey was far from over. With renewed resolve and a deepened understanding of his place in the world, Matt Murdock embraced the new beginnings that awaited him, ready to face whatever challenges the future held. The story of Daredevil was one of transformation and resilience, a tale of a hero who navigated the complexities of dual identities and emerged with a renewed sense of purpose. As the city continued to evolve, so too did Matt Murdock, forever marked by his journey and the legacy he left behind.